You said something there that I want to circle back and highlight. You said,
From having an expensive hobby to a profitable business.
I love that. That is so cool. There are so many expensive hobbies out there that need to be transformed into profitable businesses.
Welcome to Scale Smarter, where we dive into the world of business and explore practical tips and inspiring stories to help you scale your company without scaling your headcount.
Welcome, everyone. Today we have an extra special guest and close friend of mine, Anna Maria, the Red Heel Boss. We're getting double our money today because Anna Maria has two sides to her business. On the one side, she focuses on helping businesses get on top of their financials. And then like some sort of superhero, in the evenings, she helps work with clients on growing their personal brand. So welcome to the show, Anna Maria.
Thank you so much, Chas, for having me. And like you said, it's also a privilege to be in your close circles as one of your friends the last, 5 years now?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, at least. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. No, it's great to have you on. And so for those viewers at home, how about you tell us a little bit about the two sides to what you do and maybe a little bit about how they intertwine?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me, because everything comes down to the person who is running a business or multiple businesses, right? So I'm originally from Europe. I was born in Hungary and been living in New Zealand for 20 years. I have economics and finance degree, and I've worked most of my life in finance. It only shifted away or started new expenditures when my girls were born, one after the other. I just realized that at that time of my life, I did not want to be in the 9-to-5 environment. But apart from that period, on and off, I was climbing the career ladder in finances for 30 years and started running my own businesses on the side once my girls were older. So I've always been doing multiple things, and I had to become really big savvy of time and being organized and efficient and effective in my work, because raising two kids is a full-time job itself. And a little bit more about my passions. I'm heavy on the outdoors, running, water activities, nutrition, mindset, and self-development. So how Business Boost, one of the businesses I'm part of, came by through my last work, and it was just crying out for rebranding and having a new name and a whole new niche and having an online presence, which we didn't have before because we were working based on referrals. So Business Boost is about strategic bookkeeping and advisory for growing companies. It's all about rapid scaling, financial growth through reducing expenses, increasing profits, maximizing time. So we take care of all the little nitty-gritty details of daily accounting, but we use it as a tool to give insight to the health of the business and provide information throughout the months so everything can be tweaked. So versus having to wait for the year-end process with the accountant, everything can be altered, and it's really valuable to our clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so true, right? Like if there were two things that you absolutely need to scale a business, staying on top of your finances is one, and being able to actually brand and get your name out there is the second skill you absolutely have to master, right? Having somebody like you in their corner to guide them through the process, it can be a pretty daunting task, both of them. Many people find themselves with messy accounts, might be due to lack of time, might be lack of expertise, or maybe they're just not interested in accounts at all. That's not why they got into business.
Yes, absolutely.
So what's kind of the first step? If you come in and you see somebody's got this real sort of mess of accounts, how do you help them start untangling that?
Sure. So due to everything you mentioned, that there is no time, no expertise, no interest in doing accounts, which is completely fine. Business owners should be focusing on completely different things. So when we get this messy account, that's a little bit time consuming at the beginning from my point of view, but everything gets tidied up, everything gets to the right accounts, the coding, which I know it doesn't sound sexy and juicy, but it has to be done. And that's where we come in, for me, because I know what the results will be and how it will impact the businesses. It's exciting. So everything gets structured, the profit and loss and everything. So that's the first step, to tidy up the accounts and have just a general review of how the business is doing, where it is at that moment. And then usually the problem is that, like I mentioned, if they only rely on an accountant, and some people just keep their receipts in a shoebox.
Yeah.
Of course, it's more metaphorical lately because everything is online. But
the digital shoebox. Yeah.
yeah, the digital shoebox, just chucking everything in and out of sight, out of mind. So they really don't have an idea how the business is running. It's kind of flying blindfolded. So there is no room for improvement. So we work through 4 steps. One is the tidy up, like we talked about it. So everything is in order as it should be. So we see if they are making money or losing money, and that's the very first step. And then in the step 2, what I call the build. So we analyze all the data. Once again, that doesn't sound sexy for a business owner, but we are good at it, and we build the reports from it. So we gather all the data and provide valuable information for the CEOs in a way that is meaningful. Because it's one thing to see a bunch of data thrown at you, it will mean nothing to you. So we just kind of translate all these things. So we have monthly business meetings, which comes in the 3rd step, which is the insight. So this is really great for management and internal decisions. We always have to separate the two, whatever goes to taxation, to the Inland Revenue and the tax office, and what we need internally to run a healthy business that is capable of scaling. So take it like a window that allows a monthly view, so any changes can be made. Sometimes we can break it down to, that's an evolution, obviously, after gaining some routine out of it and everyone is familiar with the process. It can be on a weekly basis as well, so we can see into the business how it's doing on a weekly basis. But let's stick with the months for now, because that's standard and common. So we review things like, are there enough hours invoiced for the client? In other words, is it the chargeable hours are enough? We always have a target for these things. We know at least we have to hit 50% for making enough profit. And then it's very common thing not keeping track of time, and everyone just throws in the things into admin, which is not chargeable, like a week or 2 weeks later, or medley before panicking before the month ends, right? So all these little things can make such a big difference. So we keep an eye on these details. So because if 60% of the work is thrown into admin, which is not chargeable to the client, then it means that the business owner has to pay it out of his pocket, right? So we don't want that. Are there any software subs and contractual works that are outdated, not necessarily not using them to fullest anymore? All these little details, any unnecessary expenses that can be seized or replaced or reduced. So this is step 3. Any questions on this one?
Not so much a question, but I think it's something worth highlighting. Like I've seen this in the past, and I've seen this even with other clients that I work with, where they really they rely on the end of year accounts to be their summary of how their business is doing. And I think you touched on something super important there, like the ability to have those monthly insight and really know on a granular basis what's going on, where your money's going, making sure that the chargeables is actually adding up to the costs and overheads that you have in the business. Like that kind of stuff, if you wait until the end of the year to find out, it's too late at that point, yes. Right? Like, so that you mentioned around those monthly insights, like that, I can see how that's absolutely critical to really stay on top of and know what's going on inside your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I often say that we are the missing link between the client and the accountant. From the accountant point of view, they love working with us as well, because instead of CEO taking the digital shoebox to them and they have to do everything, which is obviously even more expensive on a higher hourly rate, but they get a clean account. They just need to do their expertise on the whole year and add what they need to do. So they love working with us as well.
Can absolutely see why the accountant would be your best friend for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, and maybe this is coming up in the next stage, but I caught as you were chatting there, you talked a bit about credit control. So that can absolutely be a significant issue, right? Like having overdue debtors and sitting on, a ton of unpaid invoices. So that's a pretty crucial problem. And what's kind of your approach to solving that for your clients?
Yes, that's a really, really great question, because in my experience, people put it off. They see it as a kind of being a burden burden on the clients or burning the bridges with them, and it's to everyone's inconvenience. But I developed a method throughout my 15 years of credit control experience where I actually build relationships with the clients throughout my credit control, because I approach them from the human point of view. I investigate what went wrong, why they are not paying. It can be a small reason, like they don't have a copy of the invoice, they didn't receive it, or the management hasn't signed it off, or they have cash flow issues when I can offer a payment plan. There are so many ways, and especially with one particular company, I noticed that their problems were not resolved. So it's quite common to hold back an invoice because they don't feel they received what included in the charges, but something goes wrong with the communication, whether they don't approach their vendors or something along the line just shifts off. And so many times I got the feedback that, oh, finally someone is listening to me and I can tell what I'm missing, what I need before I can pay this invoice. So it's really satisfying to see how we can drill down to the human side of things and just make sure that the payments are happening, but the clients are satisfied as well. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. And I collected a couple of $1 million the last 6 years.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think, like, you know, you've mentioned a couple of times, like, this is all the unsexy side of business, right? And it's funny how it works. So much of the unsexy stuff is the stuff that really does help you scale, right? You get these things wrong. You know, how do you scale a business if you have got all of these invoices outstanding and you're not on top of your finances and that sort of thing? You're waiting to the end of the year to see these insights. And so it really is going to hold your business back if you're putting this off. I really like how you put it there, particularly with something like credit control. It's one of those jobs that everybody always keeps pushing to the bottom of the pile because they don't want to do it. They feel like they're inconveniencing people, or they don't want to have a grumpy conversation. And I love the way you put that it's more about creating that relationship with the client and understanding that there could be a whole range of things that's going on in the background. Yes. It's not just that they're sitting there going, oh, I'm not going to pay this today.
Yes, absolutely. And actually something exciting I'm working on in the background in that area, because I realized that not everybody wants to hire someone to do the credit control for them. They may have the internal sources, they just don't have the method for it and the right approach. So I'm building an online course with pre-recorded videos where I walk through everyone who purchases this course, what it takes to be really, really successful in credit control, and as we talked about it, how to build those relationships further with their clients.
I love that. That's awesome. That's such a good idea.
So getting back to the process we go through with our clients, the step 1 foundation, step 2 build, step 3 insight, and the step 4 is improvements. This is when everything kind of comes together, like missing the last piece of the puzzle. So that's when we discover the areas that can be improved, and then we actually make recommendation how to, so step-by-step processes, how to improve those areas. So we're not just leaving the clients to good luck, you've got this. Actually, that's part of our meetings and processes, that we make these suggestions, and like I said, translating all these reports and financial numbers on a level that they can see what it means to them, to their business, and we visually display it to them. So we set achievable goals together and time frames and the steps it takes within, how to get there. And we've set goals with clients who are not in the startup phase anymore to achieve $2 million in revenue and $1 million in net profit. And it's just amazing when you have the right processes in place that usually they over exceed these goals. And that's just super satisfying to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it is true, right? Like, I think so much time in business, you're so focused on like what's in front of you, whether it's the immediate challenge, the immediate project, that actually sitting down and planning for the future, planning for what your actual financial goals are, it can fall to the back burner a lot of the time. And you're right, like I've experienced this in my own career, putting a goal in place, just the act of kind of putting it out there that's the goal. It's amazing how much of an impact that has on you actually achieving the goal, as opposed to just kind of having it in the back of your mind and thinking, oh yeah, we're sort of heading in this direction.
Yeah, put everything into action is the key. Have a big vision, a goal, and then know what little steps it takes to get there and actually act on them as well.
That's awesome. I mean, I can see how Business Boost can have a massive impact regardless of whether you are a startup just getting things figured out, or whether you're a more established business and really trying to, like say, increase the profit margins and a whole lot of just streamlining the organization in general, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the other important aspect for everyone, we don't start a business to become a slave and work even more than in an employment 24/7, right? I mean, it's completely okay to put that type of time and energy at the beginning, but not forever. So everyone wants to have quality time, more time to do what they love. And outsourcing the daily accounting helps them do that, and getting that advice, to take the business to the next level is just very beneficial. It increases the value of the company. With companies who work with licensing or any monthly or weekly subs, that's a really big thing to increase the MRR, the monthly recurring revenue. So even if someone is looking to bring in an investor into a company, that's a very valuable touch point for them. They always review that.
Nowadays, I know investors will focus on MRR well beyond anything else. It's one of the key metrics in the valuation of a company, right? So definitely, if you're trying to scale a business and you don't have a concept of MRR in your organization, particularly if you're planning on some kind of exit down the line, sooner rather than later, you need to get into planning to add some MRR products, services, etc. into the company. Otherwise, the valuation at the end is going to be significantly lower than you probably want.
Yes, absolutely. So it has so many impacts. I think you only see it once you work with us, and then you see starting it unfolding and how it improves the business. But I hope that people will see the value in it based on this podcast as well. Because there are so many other areas, research and development, that we can apply for, and get some tax incentives from Callahan and Inland Revenue. Like I mentioned, automizing everything in the business, especially when it grows, and onboarding new team members, having all the protocols in place. What does it take to employ someone or have a contractor on board? What is the credit control protocol look like? What is the plan B if something happens to the key people in the business? And all these things need to be planned out in advance. So the longer we work together, the deeper we can drill into these things, and these things will add so much value as well, like the leave liability. Keep an eye on it, which only means for the people who are not familiar, if someone is employed and they don't use up their annual leave, but they are entitled for, and it keeps accumulating each year. Let's say in 5 years' time, someone quits or the employment ends, and there is that huge amount of money that the company needs to pay out to the employee, and it can, with multiple employees, it can, grow. So we monitor that as well. So there are so many aspects that we can help businesses with.
In today's world, to build up the financial side first, it's quite likely you're going to need some level of branding. And particularly if you're kind of a solopreneur or a new startup, then the personal branding side of things is super important. I've experienced that myself as we've grown RightTech. When we were chatting before the call, you mentioned that you've observed that one of the big challenges of new people to business or just personal branding is kind of the shyness, being introverted, and that can be a real barrier to helping them grow their business. And so how do you overcome the challenge of that shyness and being able to show up confidently online?
Yeah, I can tell my own example first, and then talking about my clients who go through similar things in general. So when I started a business under the name With Anna Maria, which is rebranding now to the Red Hill Boss, because it was just a side thing, an idea, but it's grown so much and it got so popular, and that's part of the story. So when I started, I knew I wanted to help, especially women, to help them with confidence and succeed in life and business. But within that, I was just shifting from one idea to another, because there are so many ways to help in this area, right? There is a million things. And I knew I could practically help with nearly anything. But because I wasn't clear about my message and who exactly I'm helping and how am I packaging it, how am I broadcasting it out there, because I was confused. My messages didn't come across really clearly either, so I spoke to no one. And the other problem was that I was using just random beautiful images from Canva for my carousels, and I put out really valuable content, but there was no personality, no experiences, no personal knowledge behind it. So it was just quite dry. And so it didn't really relate to anyone. And when I realized that I really have to just drill down deeper and see what I'm really passionate about, that's when I started, just this idea, that light bulb moment, kind of in the shower, what people go through. It just all clicked that I want to have a really strong brand presence, because all my personal experiences I went through previously, I just realized that I have to become kind of a rebel. I can't keep living by other people's rules and expectations and social and cultural norms and all these influences that we have from outside. And I have to take my spin on everything. I have previously, before the branding, just in other things in life, I started questioning things and investigated for myself. Do I really believe it? Not because I hear it from everywhere or I read it on the internet or someone says it to me. Do I really believe in it? How do I feel about it? So that became a big cornerstone of everything I did. And then from there, it was just so easy to work out my branding, the look-wise as well, and finding my voice, the tone, what I wanted to achieve, how people feel when they come across my brand. And, the success was just so instant. I felt like before I was going around in circles or like in a hamster wheel, I was doing lots of things and no results whatsoever. And from that point, when I became so clear on what I'm doing and how, it was just like a completely different ball game. And this is what mainly women, but I work with anyone, come into my world, shy and introverted, uncertain about the mission, which can cause them to hide and avoid showing up, right? We know we should be doing it, but we just can't bring ourselves to it. And many people will have too many ideas or skill set. So when they have this creative mind and they just go from one idea to another, like I did at the beginning, there are different methods that will come a bit later. That do we just select one? Do we execute all of them, and how do we make it work? So when someone has multiple niches or multiple businesses like me, how do we bring it all together? How do we make it work? So this is usually the starting point for the clients who come into my world.
I mean, I've experienced that as well, right? Like, particularly when you're starting out, you can have so many ideas running through your head. You got so many areas you want to help. And you absolutely, if you spread yourself too thin, then you end up helping no one, right? Like, better to initially start with a kind of laser focus, and then you can expand from there as you kind of get more confident, as you understand more about who your potential target market is.
I work with different personality types, but what has been the most rewarding when someone came into extremely shy and introverted, like they didn't want to bother anybody, even with multiple posts a week on LinkedIn, and didn't want to be a nonsense or tiring to anyone, and just showing the light on how valuable what they have is and how much people need it, and approach it from that level, that just to start loving on themselves a little bit first, and seeing the value and start believing in themselves and what they are doing, how needed and great it is, and just seeing them really fly and blossom, and other people noticing it now as well. We started working on confidence and personal issues, and then we migrated to branding and building up the LinkedIn social media presence. And actually, she is into 3 different things as well, all connected around one topic, but they are a little bit different. And actually, the third one came through an idea, seeing her passion and fire, that she could make a mentoring coaching program out of it. And it just did light the fire on the whole thing. It was just beautiful to witness. And that's what we are working on right now.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you touched on a couple of things there, around the mindset and confidence side of things. And I know, even for myself, when I started getting more into social media posting, there's so many things that run through your head, right? Like, what's my friend gonna think? What's my family gonna think? Your mind starts playing tricks on you and tries to give you excuses not to do it, right? Not to put yourself out there. And I know, I don't think I've spoken to anyone that has overcome that and then regretted it, right? Like once you get over that kind of barrier, then you realize like how much value is in the ability to show up online. And so how, in an example like that, how do you work with clients to evolve their thinking and kind of self-perception so that they can grow their business and not be held back by kind of mindset?
Yes, so this is the first step of the process, and it's not something that we go through and it's done and dealt with. It's an ongoing, it's parallel to everything else we do. So the cornerstone, how I say it, that from having an expensive hobby to a profitable business is developing a badass mindset, right? We have to be like a lion mama protecting their cubs. This is my business. We have to develop that pride, and I'm going to do anything, whatever it takes, that kind of mindset. But of course, if someone is really shy and introvert, like I said, we have to start with really tangible and useful tools like gratitude and affirmation and heart breathing and being present and stacking up all the values and good things that they did in their lives, because we tend to forget. We give credit to everybody around us but ourselves. And on the other side, from the business side, just to work on how unique they are and finding their tone of voice and their communication, working on money blocks. That's really big, especially for women, for many reasons. And all the insecurities based on past relationships from childhood, anyone, parents, grandparents, nursery teachers, teachers at school, best friends, partners, spouses, in life. So they all come out as procrastination, imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough. That's a big one, like it ties together everyone. Lack of decision making, burnout, stress, all these things. So I always dig deeper and go back, a few steps. Why is it happening? I'm told to be really good at helping people to tap into their brilliance. And that's a great thing, because I don't see in their heads 100%. I don't want to tell them what to do. I offer solutions and tools and practical steps. But at the end of the day, I always say, it's your decision. You are the CEO. And that's another thing, developing that CEO mindset for making decisions, even if they are not the right ones. That's okay. It's okay to fail. And all these yummy things that we go through. And it's really, really rewarding to see these aha moments, and the shifts that are happening, because it will come across as they turn up online, with really high vibrations, the positive mindset, and they don't just show up online in the next phase. They will demand their space, they will create that demand for themselves. So shifting from the scarcity operation to the abundance, belief and infinity approach is the key.
You said something there that I want to circle back and highlight. You said going from an expensive hobby to a profitable business. I love that. That is so cool. There are so many expensive hobbies out there that need to be transformed into profitable businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why people give up, right? Because they don't see any results. And we feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, because it's happening practically for everyone but me, right? This is how we see others. We compare ourselves to people who've been doing it maybe 10 years or 5 years or 3 years, and they are doing well, at least from what we see online. But I'd like to highlight it to everyone on this note, that with the right steps and the right guidance, it's really possible to make it happen. So do not give up, not under my watch.
No, and I think, even in my own experience, sometimes I feel like people give up too soon because they feel like they're stuck in that expensive hobby phase, and they're not taking into account all of the additional value that quote unquote expensive hobby is creating, right? Like you can have an expensive hobby that is still teaching you something, that is helping you grow as a person. And I think going back to the point earlier about having short-term and long-term goals, if you have goals in place and okay, well, yes, right now it's an expensive hobby, but this is what I'm growing towards. This is how I'm as a person growing, and how I'm going to evolve it from an expensive hobby to something more substantial, more profitable. Then once again, that's a big part of the mindset as well, is understanding there's a difference between just kind of throwing money in a black hole and investing in yourself and investing in your own growth, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to tell you on the investing in ourselves at the very beginning when I was just mapping out whether I should do this or not. And I listened to Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and Jenna Kutcher and, all the big names, Amy Porterfield. And I love what they were teaching. And they always said at the end that you have to make that leap to invest in yourself. And I heard something amazing from someone that broke people go to Disney, right? So whatever is desirable, you will go for it even if you can't afford it. But that's how you grow. You have to do something you haven't done before. But I always thought, oh yeah, you are saying it because you want me to purchase your program or hire you. And now I understand that it's really true, because we can go around in circles for years and years on our own. There are so many aspects of the business that we can't figure out, and we were not prepared to do it and we are not good at. So why not have someone to have the shortcut for us? And it will return tenfold for sure.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something there, and I know I experience this even with like my own clients, where I have people come to me and I start talking to them about what their future goals are, and they say things like, my goal is to earn 100K a year, 200K a year. And then you start sort of trying to unpack that and say, okay, well, what does that look like? What is the journey to get you to 100K per year look like? And that's kind of where the thought process stopped. It was like, I have this big goal at the end, but I haven't thought about how I'm actually going to get there. And so how do you approach that kind of goal setting side of things? How do you break down the big, scary 100K a year into something that's more manageable?
Yeah, sure. So like from the big vision to the small action step to work out everything, back engineer that 100K, like you said. And like you said, goal setting on a long term and short term. That's really important. And the short term is important because we have to measure it, right? And along the way, we can reward ourselves when we hit a smaller goal, within that 100K year, then we can treat ourselves to something special so that it will fire us even further. So the first step is always to establish the why. Why are we doing it? Because that will be a rocky ride, it will be up and down. It will be amazing at the end or in general, but like nothing in life worthy comes easy. So if you have a really strong mission statement and know what this business is going to do for you, and not just saying that, okay, I want to be my own boss so I can manage my time. Yes, but what do you want to spend your time with? What does it look and feel like for you? Are you in a mountain cabin once a month in a hot spa and sipping on hot cocoa in front of the fireplace? Or are you on a tropical island? Or maybe it's just that you can take the time off and be at the football training of your kid every week. What is it exactly you want to spend your time on? So it's really important that will be the motivation, the driving force that gets you through the heartbeats and everything. And then I am using the SMART goals, which is smart, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-sensitive. So once again, we have to distinguish what's the income and what's the profit. Obviously, not all the income will stay in our bank accounts. We have to pay taxes and expenses and everything. So once we have this number, how many clients do we need for that, and what is the price point for that, and how much time of that will it take from you? Is it possible, or do we come to 70 hours per week, because then you won't be able to do it, right? And then how many sales conversations and conversion events do you have to hold to hit that target? How many clients you need or how many programs you need to sell, and what is the conversion rate from that, because not everybody who's coming to your events or downloads a freebie or whatsoever will sign up, right? And we touch base on the capacity of the working hours, and on the other side, how much time do you have to spend on marketing, income generating activities, networking, once again investing in yourself, learning, becoming the best, the authority. All these things, we have a money mapping session with the clients and just make these goals really realistic and achievable and tweak it as we need. Maybe if you have to build it up, yes, I have 100K per year income target, but right now I'm earning 2,000. Then by the end of the financial year, if I increase it by $1,000 each year, I won't hit the 100K, but next year when I'm already at that level and it's consistent, every month, then I can. So these things we need to monitor.
I want to dig into that a little bit deeper, because we've talked quite a bit about how you advise on areas of saving money, increasing revenue. And so can you give an example, a common oversight that you've seen and how to address it? Like, is there a common theme that you see, or is it kind of different for every person?
I think technology is one of the pitfalls of businesses, investing in, and I'm honestly not talking against Kajabi or any other big names, but I know that my struggle was holding me back, having different materials and videos recorded in small programs. That was holding me back the monthly fees. I was not prepared to pay that amount of money at that stage. And I came across a really amazing platform for that one. But I think extracting the video text into written text, and I don't know, there's so many things. You know it even more than me, right? Like video editing and then different softwares for everything, right? So I think it can really add up, and it's not necessary to start with a fancy funnel at the beginning when you are a small business and just starting out. So I think it's mainly technology that can soak up money without seeing much return. And it's not necessarily you don't need them, it's just you don't have the other elements that you need to build up on, like the marketing and the branding and all these things. So you may have an amazing funnel that you pay a fortune each month for, but you don't know how to market it. Then you won't see any return from that.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And it's funny, you remind me of a story like when I was early on in my career. I'll put my hand up and say I've been a computer geek for most of my life. That's why I do what I do, right? And I remember sitting around the table with a bunch of colleagues and talking about how I'd signed up to some license for being able to create my own website. And I just remember everybody at the table being like, you're going to pay monthly for a piece of software? Like, why don't you just buy it outright? And it's like, so I always had that mindset. But then when I built my first startup, I remember going out to people in a kind of old school industry, trying to sell them a software license. And the concept of being so foreign that most of the challenge was trying to convince them why they had to pay for a software license to begin with. And obviously fast forward to now, it's become a lot more common. But I think because it's become common, what you said there is exactly right. We end up with all these subscriptions that we pay for that we don't necessarily know what ROI they're generating. And I've experienced this firsthand, with clients that I work with, where they're like, oh, we're going to sign up to this piece of software because it's going to make life so much easier and do all these things for us. And then when you really break it down, you're like, well, hang on, there's an alternative to how you could do this. And there's actually a step before this. Like you said, we can have the best looking funnel in the world, but if we're not driving people to the funnel, what's the point? And so it's been an interesting thing to watch shift over the years, but it once again kind of ties back into even the business push side of things of staying on top of the subscriptions that you're actually paying, knowing why you're paying for it and what impact it is or isn't having on your business, right?
Yeah, and that's why I'm excited what you have to offer. And I just joined as well this AI lead generation, because that's my motto as well, to keep things simple, because we are only human and we have limited time and resources, energy levels and knowledge. So what you offer within that is just, makes life so much easier for online creators.
You touched before on having multiple niches, and this is something I made a note that I wanted to circle back on, because it's been really interesting. Having lived and run a business in the US versus living and running a business in New Zealand, you're talking two very different scales in terms of the population, in terms of the potential market. In the US, and I see a lot of advice online that says niche down, you gotta be super specific, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I would kind of add the caveat of depending on the market that you live in. Because you can be super niche in the US, and that could still mean that you could have access to 10, 20 million people, where you can be super niche in a country like New Zealand, which means you have access to about 20 people. So So in terms of kind of personal branding, and you mentioned like, clients having multiple niches, how do you kind of navigate the challenge of those, multiple niches and still keeping it coherent?
That's really, really good question. Just circling back to what you said, niching down and having a super niche down niche. I heard it at the beginning as well, but actually it can do a lot of harm for a new business, because until they don't gain the experience and they don't have the real feedback, what's in demand, it's completely different what we think is needed and what we find out that is really needed based on market research or putting out an offer and start working with people and, listening to them what they really need. So I believe we don't always have to focus on, like we are serving women in corporate. We can focus on a problem. They feel burnt out, they feel unsatisfied, unfulfilled, just completely exhausted and losing their mojo for life, and they are not enjoying family time because they are exhausted. So we can focus on a problem, not on a person. Or there are ways to make, like a general life coach can have multiple niches. It comes down in not throwing everything into one message, separating the things and talking to everyone separately, right? So there are little tricks. And then the other side is so we have too many ideas, we are good at too many things, then it's just kind of a chaos in our heads, and we already talked about how important it is not to be confused and be clear on what we are doing. Or if someone has multiple businesses, how can you bring it under an umbrella brand? And sometimes they are completely different things, like it can be, travel and crypto and yoga, right? But how do you make sense of it? So first of all, people are afraid of, I'm going to repel people. And I say, that's okay. 1 week you focus on this one and the other ones are not interested. Other week you focus on that topic and some people are not interested, but you get the right clients here and the audience and so on. So it can be made work really, really well. Once again, it comes down to building up a structure, content pillars, the subtopics within that, and just talk to each of them separately. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you remind me of something like I often say to new clients when I work with them is like, particularly if they don't have a proven offer, I have a lot of people that'll come to me and they'll say like, this is the offer I have and I want you to help me take it to the market. And I'm like, that is an uphill battle, right? You get two choices when you start a new business. You can come up with the idea and then you can try and market that to people and, to be honest, try and force it on them if they're not asking for it.
Yep.
Or you can find the people that you want to work with and find out what's important to them, find out what the problems are that they're having, and then you can craft something around solving those problems. Now, in different cases, maybe you've come up with something super new and is going to solve a problem, and there's just an education piece that you got to do. But in my experience, more often than not, creating the offer first and trying to push it on people is a lot harder than finding out what people want. And so I like what you were saying there. And it kind of even ties back to what we were saying earlier about the sort of confidence side of things. If you are worried about like putting out too much content and annoying people and that kind of thing, and you can kind of mix up your niches a little bit so that, all the topics that you're covering, so that, 1 week you're covering a topic, like you said, like yoga, that's some of your audience is interested in. The next week you're covering something like travel that a different segment of your audience is interested in. And then there's going to be those that are interested in both, and they're going to be happy to see both sets of content.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely a concept, I think, particularly, if you're watching this and you're in a smaller country, then it probably goes against the grain of a lot of advice that you're hearing, because a lot of advice is be super specific about your niche, be super specific about your message.
Yeah.
Which works great in a big economy, but doesn't work so well in a smaller economy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's why I have this rebel approach that I'm not going with the mainstream advice. I'm looking into what suits my clients, because everyone is different. I offer different solutions and make my suggestion based on, what I see and feel from them. But once again, it's their CEO decision, what aligns truly with them and how they see themselves making it work and sticking with it. As we know, consistency is so important in business. And yeah, like you said, what I really like, trying to force upon, so to speak, an offer because we think they need it, and it's really good. So many people will be afraid of being salesy and pushy. They don't want to do that. And I say, no, you don't have to at all. So, the second step or the second main pillar of my teaching is the establishing a really bold brand is, part of the messaging and the copies and the content, providing tons of value and then putting it out there. What we have to offer for them is not salesy and pushy. It's their decision. As the saying goes, everyone loves buying, but nobody likes being sold to. Right? Just take the typical example of going into a used car yard and the salesman comes to you, right? And really pushy and won't leave you alone.
Been there, yep.
Right? So it's not what we are doing, but once again, we have to believe that it's so good what we are offering that someone would be silly not to act on it, obviously knowing that they may not be ready, they may be ready. There can be, any holdbacks from their side, so it's still not forcing. We just know that it's really good, it's a good value, and it will serve people on a really big level. So once they work with you in any form, it will positively impact their life and business. So it's really important, and that gives you, once again, that confidence, and it will not hold you back from doing your thing and turning up on social media or any forum, in-person networking events. It's just establishing that they say trust, like, and know. I say trust, love, and know, because we want to build raving fans for ourselves and want to find our tribe, and it's such a beautiful journey to come from not knowing what to do and how to do and not feeling good enough and not feeling confident to step up that, yes, this is what I'm doing, look at me. And it's amazing. It will help you so much.
Yeah, I mean, so many bits of gold in what you said just then. And I want to kind of go back for a second and talk about you specifically. So reflecting on your career, for those people listening, like what's one piece of advice you wish you had when you started out?
Just don't hesitate, just do it, and don't aim for perfection. That's the main holding back reason. Be prepared to fall on your face and then stand up and do it again, and you will succeed. Because the only thing that differentiates people who succeed and fail is that the people who succeed, they fail 1,000 times and they try 1,001.
Just do it. That's great. Somebody should trademark that. That's
yes. Yes.
Kind of looking ahead. I mean, you touched on it a bit earlier with Business Boost and the credit control side of things. But looking ahead, are there any other new projects or goals you're particularly excited about?
Well, for Business Boost, there's definitely, something is brand new with that credit control program and training. And I think I'm also excited to have clients who are just the planning phase of their business and give them a blueprint what a business needs. I'm working on a business package, basics, what it takes, what do they really need to think about, and what processes they have to have handy. And for the Red Hill Boss, it's actually two things going parallel. One is a passion project of helping women overcome toxic relationships in any form, whether they want to stay and improve it or they want to leave or already left and it has impacts on themselves. So just, start from the self-love perspective. So I started a monthly meeting and a free Facebook group on the Fearless Independent Woman. And the other side, in general, for anyone who is interested, finally making the Red Hill Boss Income Academy program happen. So I'm working on that one in the background, and that's going to be amazing.
That sounds cool. And so if people want to kind of know more, want to reach out to you to join some of these initiatives that you're building out, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So I think the best thing is to book a 30 minutes call, just to get to know each other and see where they are at, what's holding them back and what they want to achieve, so I can help them and see whether we are a good fit for each other. So just on the calendly.com, meet with Anna Maria /free call. That's where they can find me, or any social media as a Red Hill Boss.
Awesome. And we'll include those links in the podcast as well. So anybody listening, you'll be able to find those and get in touch with Anna Maria. I highly recommend that you do, for so many different reasons, as you've heard today. And so I think like as we kind of wrap up, one of the things we've touched on is around, some of the struggles of trying to balance different hats, business, life, family, multiple niches. So, to kind of close things out, what's your kind of golden piece of advice to manage it all without burning out?
Yeah, I think especially for women, it's really important to keep in mind the self-care aspect. So it can't be just always go, and list, and done. It has to be recharging the batteries, allowing ourselves to have this white space when we can get creative. That's why we get ideas in the shower, in the bath, during a walk or a workout, right? So, but we have to schedule these things in. So it's really, really important. And having some sort of method, I'm just building out a brand new one for myself, which will be shared with my client, how to structure a day, the right ratio of income producing activities and CEO things, marketing and content creation that takes up a lot of our time as well. So it would be mainly these things, just to schedule in self-care and these white spaces and things for life, because we can plan a lot of things, but surely we'll be thrown off because something will happen in life or in business that we don't foresee just yet. So allow these things in our calendar and in our schedule and just be really organized.
No, that's cool. Thanks so much, Anna Maria. Now, before we close out, I'm going to give everybody a reason not to follow you. And the reason I don't want them to follow you is because Anna Maria posts some amazing looking meals that she prepares for herself and her family. And so if you don't like sitting at your desk and suddenly feeling super hungry because of the amazing meals that are posted online, then don't follow Anna Maria. But otherwise, if you love all the advice and everything you've heard today, then probably better to follow Anna Maria and the Red Heel Boss.
Loved it. Thank you so much, Chad. Awesome. It was so much fun.
Thanks, Anna Maria. And thanks, everyone. We'll see you on